When military crises erupt around the globe, the U.S. Army calls on its rapid reaction forces to put boots on the ground quickly. One of the best-known units of these elite forces is the 82nd Airborne Division. Parachutes were invented to save airmen in the event of problems with their aircraft. In the 1930s, several armies began experimenting with them for military operations. By World War II, a new type of soldier emerged, the paratrooper. Today, the 82nd Airborne Division is an essential element of the U.S. Army's Rapid Reaction Forces. During Operation Warrior Sweep in July 2003, it was the 82nd who helped rout out Taliban and Al-Qaeda forces from their mountain hideouts in Afghanistan. This operation highlighted a primary mission requirement of the division, the need to be able to deploy a combat-ready force at a moment's notice.
The mission of the 82nd Airborne Division is to deploy anywhere in the world within 18 hours of notification, conduct a parachute assault, conduct follow-on combat operations in support of the national objective. And what that means is the division has the ability to be deployed and inserted into a hostile environment without a secure airfield to support its operations.
The 82nd Airborne Division maintains a rapid reaction capability through vigorous peacetime training. Always prepared, the division maintains a portion of its forces called the Division Ready Force on an alert status, ready to go into action anywhere around the globe. With its proud history and demanding mission, the 82nd Airborne has long been considered one of the U.S. Army's elite formations. The 82nd has been able to meet its requirements by depending on volunteer soldiers.
The troopers of the 82nd Airborne Division are twice volunteers. They first volunteer to come into the Army, then they volunteer to become an airborne soldier. He has to pass the test, so to speak, in order to come into the division. First, he successfully passes his basic and advanced infantry training, and then he must go through the grueling airborne school that is part of the United States Army. So that twice volunteer status makes him a unique and highly motivated soldier.
World War II saw the first extensive use of airborne forces. The U.S. Army's best-known airborne divisions in World War II were the 101st Screaming Eagles and the 82nd All-Americans. These early airborne units used two methods of delivery into combat zones. The best-known and most widely used technique was the parachute. But the divisions also could deliver a portion of their troops as well as heavy equipment by gliders, towed behind transport aircraft and released near the landing zone. The 82nd's first airborne operation was during the 1943 invasion of Sicily, followed by later combat actions at Salerno and Anzio in Italy. The 82nd and 101st took part in the massive airborne attacks that initiated the D-Day invasion of Normandy in June 1944. Their last major airborne drop of the war took place in the Arnhem operation in the Netherlands, where the 82nd Airborne seized the Nijmegen Bridge. In the post-war years, the technology of troop insertion began to change with the advent of the helicopter. Helicopters, rather than parachutes or gliders, could deliver forces deep behind enemy lines. The 101st Airborne was converted over to a heliborne force, now called the 101st Air Assault Division. But parachutes still have their place in modern warfare. Limited by the range of the helicopters, heliborne forces can be delivered only a few hundred miles. Paratroopers can be delivered to objectives much further, since their transport aircraft have ranges of several thousand miles.
The difference between the 101st and the 82nd, we're both in the same contingency corps, and once we're on the ground, physically on the ground, our capabilities in the infantry battalions are very similar. The significant difference is the training time that it takes to be a paratrooper, insertion by parachute, as compared to insertion by helicopters. We both have to focus on that entry technique, and those require some intensive training both at the individual level and at the command levels.
When going into a combat jump, the paratrooper is heavily burdened with equipment. Over his regular combat equipment webbing, the paratrooper wears a special harness. The main parachute is attached to the rear of this harness and is designed to land the paratrooper safely even during jumps from under 1,000 feet. In front, the paratrooper attaches a reserve parachute. The airborne soldier's individual weapon is carried in an M1950 weapons case. The soldier's Alice pack or rucksack is suspended off the front of the harness. In total, the paratrooper carries about 150 to 180 pounds of equipment.
The T-10 Bravo and Charlie parachutes are 35 foot in diameter, and they fall at a rate of descent of approximately 15 feet per second. This allows the paratrooper to land safely. That parachute is also designed to bring 350 pounds safely to the ground. It is also designed to open quickly, and the division jumps at low altitudes, so that parachute has to act as designed every time.
When inside the aircraft preparing to jump, the paratrooper's static line is attached to the anchor line in the aircraft. Upon jumping, the weight of the paratrooper breaks a pack closing tie when the end of the 15-foot static line is reached. When this happens, the parachute deployment bag comes free of the pack tray. Two connector link ties break, and the suspension lines are pulled out of the stow loops of the deployment bag. Finally, two locking stows disengage, and the canopy is pulled from the deployment bag. The entire process takes about 4 seconds from exiting the aircraft to full inflation of the parachute's canopy.